We spend so much time talking about how to build wealth, but there's this other side to the coin that's honestly maybe even more important: how to actually keep it. And as we're about to see, getting rich and staying rich, they are two completely different ballgames.
So, let me just start by asking you this. What do you think is harder, making $3 billion or holding on to it? The answer is probably not what you think, and it really gets to the very heart of what we're digging into here.
To really wrap our heads around this, we've got to travel back in time. The year is 1929. The stock market is in an absolute catastrophic free fall. People's fortunes are just vanishing overnight. But for one guy, the most famous stock trader of his day, Jesse Livermore, this was the single greatest moment of his life. See, Livermore's strategy was nothing short of brilliant. While literally everyone else was in a full-blown panic watching their stocks just crater, he had masterfully shorted the market. What's that mean? Well, basically, he bet that stocks would go down, and boy, did that bet pay off. It paid off on a scale that is just hard to even comprehend. He walked away with what would be, in today's money, $3 billion in a single day. Wild. But on that very same day, another fella, a wealthy real estate developer named Abraham Germansky, he watched his own fortune completely evaporate, and he was just never seen again. Two men, two completely opposite fates. Or so it seemed. Because here's the crazy twist. Just 4 years after that epic, life-changing win, Jesse Livermore, now overconfident, borrowing tons of money to make even bigger bets, lost every single penny. He eventually took his own life. And this story just perfectly illustrates our main point. Both of these men were absolute geniuses at getting wealthy, but they were terrible at staying wealthy. Livermore's story really shows us that getting money and keeping money aren't just two different skills. Nope, they require two totally different mindsets, and a lot of the time, those mindsets are in direct conflict with each other. I mean, think about it, right? Getting wealthy, that usually means taking big risks. It means being super optimistic, putting yourself out there. But keeping wealth, whoa, that's a different story. That takes humility, it takes a healthy dose of fear, the fear that everything you've built can be taken away in a flash. It takes being frugal, and it takes recognizing that, hey, maybe, just maybe, a little bit of your success came down to good old-fashioned luck. The very skills that get you to the top can be the exact same things that send you crashing right back down. Let me give you another example. We've all heard of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, right? The legendary investing pair. But way back, about 40 years ago, there was actually a third partner, a guy named Rick Guerin. And from what everyone says, he was every bit as smart as they were. But he had one fatal flaw. He was in a hurry. So, during this really nasty market crash back in 73 and 74, Guerin was using a ton of borrowed money, we call them margin loans, to juice his investments. So when the market absolutely tanked, he got that dreaded call from his broker. He was forced to sell his Berkshire Hathaway stock to Buffett for next to nothing, just to cover his debts. He was amazing at getting rich, but he didn't have that survival mindset you need to stay rich. Okay, so how do you avoid this kind of fate? How do you actually build that survival mindset? Well, it really boils down to a 3-part strategy. First, your number one goal should be to become financially unbreakable. Look, the real magic in investing is compounding, right? But that magic only works if you can give your money decades to grow. If you have to sell everything during a crash just to pay the bills, you completely break that compounding chain. You lose the game. Second, you have to plan on your plan not going according to plan. This is what we call having room for error. So you might expect the market to give you 8% returns a year. That's great, but your plan has to be able to work even if you only get 4%. It's all about building a buffer for a future that is, let's be honest, completely unpredictable. And finally, this is a cool one, you need to develop what's called a barbelled personality. What on earth is that? Well, it means you're incredibly optimistic about the long-term future. You believe things will generally get better over time. But you are absolutely paranoid about all the short-term threats that could stop you from ever getting there. So when you put all of this together, you start to realize something pretty profound. The ultimate financial superpower, it's not about making these brilliant, flashy moves. It's about something way more basic. So, here's the key takeaway. There is one force in investing that is more powerful than anything else. More powerful than your IQ, more powerful than your strategy, more powerful than market timing. And that one thing is longevity. It's the simple ability to stay in the game long enough for your advantages to actually work for you. Because really, at the end of the day, financial success is so much less about those occasional flashes of genius and so much more about consistently, methodically, just not screwing up. If you can survive the downturns, and trust me, they will happen, without getting totally wiped out, you give compounding the one thing it needs most: time. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on. Take a hard look at your own strategy, your own financial plans. Are they built for brilliance, or are they built to survive?